Colleagues, good evening to you, and I hope that you are going to get real benefit from this webinar this evening. And it is speaking about something which is very close to my heart, which is well-being of veterinary and paraveterinary professionals, and specifically in South Africa, but across the world. And what I'm going to do here is to share some of my personal journey in terms of finding calm and well-being in what can be a very busy and often challenging world that we work in as veterinary and paraveterinary professionals and animal care personnel more broadly. So tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a shortcut to calm, or a few shortcuts to calm. These are mindfulness practices that really make us more aware of how we are feeling, of our thoughts, our emotions, and our bodies and our life experience, essentially, and ways to let us have a more happy and healthy existence on this planet as human beings. So Barry gave an introduction. I'm just going to run through a few points here that I think is relevant background. So I see many familiar names in the chat, so it's very nice to see so many people from the past, and then of course also many names that I don't recognize, and I do hope that I'll be able to meet many of our colleagues here in future. So academically, I'm a registered veterinary specialist for over 25 years, like Barry mentioned, and I've worked on 3 continents as a vet and a vet specialist in internal medicine, and I did my BBSc and honors at Onderstepoort, as well as my MEd vet in internal medicine of small animals, and then later I did a DPhil, the PhD equivalent in Oxford University in the UK in human genetics, and I'm also a diplomant of the European College of Veterinary Internal Medicine in companion animals. So in South Africa, I've been involved in the veterinary industry. Some of the main points to mention would be the Vet Council. I served as a council member on the Veterinary Council. I served as a council member on the National Health Research Ethics Council, the NHREC, which sets standards for the conduct of health research on humans and animals in South Africa. And then I've been the president of the South African Association for Laboratory Animal Science. And as a vet and an animal lover and an animal carer, I'm sure many of you can imagine that that is a challenging world, the world of lab animals. And of course, staying well there is, for the people involved, it is also a particular challenge. Then in Africa, I was a founder member of the Pan-African Network for Laboratory Animal Science and Ethics across the African continent, and a co-chair for the International Council of Lab Animal Science for the African region. So I focused on in South Africa and Africa really in terms of promoting standards for the care of animals. And some of my other relevant experience is I was a professor of medicine previously at a veterinary school, and then some internationally accredited courses which I founded, and then some about 20 odd research publications and scientific publications. So that's my background from a sort of a CV point of view, but I want to take you through a little bit more of my personal journey because that really links to what we are talking about here tonight. And my journey started off, as it does, as a child in that beautiful place that you can see. That some of you who know the garden route may recognize that beautiful town. And I grew very close to nature, close to animals, ecosystems. Really developed a love for nature, and also that then inspired my eventually becoming a vet from a young age. I really wanted to help animals based on the experience of our pets as a child. And there you can see, look at that gorgeous photo there, wearing the OP salmon pink for my, I think this might have been my master's degree. So on the journey as a vet, super excited, of course, as we are, and then moving into the big world of clinical practice. So I really loved clinical practice. I loved working with the animals, and the people relationships always are very special with the staff, and I really enjoyed my clinical work. I specialized in internal medicine of dogs and cats. I did some teaching at an international university, a US-based university, and then of course, I specialized in internal medicine, and I really found that a fascinating world of veterinary science. I really became interested in the molecular basis of disease, specifically genetics. And that is then what led me to Oxford University, where I did my DPhil in human genetics, functional genetics, genome-wide association, and cell culture models of human disease. And that was really fascinating, wanting to understand at a deeper level the cellular mechanisms of health and disease. It is also this that then led me to come back to South Africa and to contribute in the scientific environment to as I highlighted earlier, to really focus on increasing standards, scientific standards for the care and use of animals for scientific purposes. And serving on all those international councils and the Veterinary Council and these other national councils and international bodies, and having a really challenging job as the director of the largest academic center for animal research, probably on the African continent, brought me, it's over 3 years ago now, maybe 3.5 years ago, it brought me to a complete burnout. This is what my psychologist called it at the time. He said it was a burnout, and all that I really knew is that it was a complete breakdown, a mental emotional breakdown. I got to a point where I literally I was brought to my knees. I actually realized that at the age of 48, that I didn't really know how to do life in a way that kept me well, given the challenges of the work that we do, the ethical issues, just the challenges of being professionals, that I really just realized that I didn't know how to relate to the world in a way that I could remain well. So that was a massive life experience for me, that burnout, that breakdown, and that then led me to this mindfulness journey that I'm going to talk to you about and explain some of those concepts and do some of the mindfulness little exercises with you, which can be really transformative, because that was really for me the key that brought me to from breakdown to breakthrough. And this photo that you see here was taken about 2-3 months ago when I was doing an ultra trail run here on Table Mountain in Cape Town. And that journey from breakdown to breakthrough really for me was massively empowered and enabled by mindfulness. So some of you will be aware we've certainly, most of us have heard of mindfulness. It's quite a catchy term these days. Maybe some of you practice mindfulness techniques, but I think for many people, it will be very new. So I'm going to take it from that perspective and just look at mindfulness as a concept. And this image really, for me, sums it up the best of any visual representation that I have seen to date. So in life, we are experiencing certain phenomena. So in this case, let us look at that image there. It's a beautiful image of nature. Now let's imagine we are walking in that beautiful landscape. There's a lake, there's the grasslands, the trees, the beautiful mountains in the background. It's around sunset time. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You could imagine the smells of the grass. You could imagine the wind blowing touching on your skin, the temperature of the air, the beautiful things that we are seeing. And the one way to experience this is like this person that we see there. Literally, they are experiencing what is happening in that moment, right there, right then. They are in the moment. They are experiencing it for all the beauty that there is. Now, some of us live that way, but many of us don't. And I certainly didn't. I'm much closer to that now. It's a journey, but I'm certainly much closer to that than I've ever been before. And this is because of being very consciously aware of our internal state. Because the opposite of what we see on the right is here on the left. This is a person who is in exactly that same environment, but they are completely lost in thought and in the emotions that captivate them, that consume them. Something that happened at work, something that upset them in the past, concerns, worries about the future, emotions, the thoughts fuel emotions, the emotions fuel thoughts, and they are walking in that same beautiful landscape, but they're not really seeing the beauty. They're not smelling the grass. They're not feeling the touch of the wind on their skin. They are completely lost in their internal world. So that is not being mindful. So the picture on the right depicts a state of awareness, or a state of, some people will call it wakefulness or mindfulness. There's different terms for this, or presence. Some people will refer to it as presence. And it's a particular state of being that we can practice and get better at. And those thoughts and those emotions that are causing us so much distress sometimes, we can let them go and just experience the present moment for the beauty of what it is. So that is mindfulness, paraphrased in the Bert Mohr version of coming out of my life experience. Now, that is the concept of mindfulness. And my question to you tonight is, as the attendee here, is which of those two people, which of those two images most accurately depicts your state, your internal mental emotional state on a daily basis? So when I was in my crisis, when I had that mental emotional meltdown, that breakdown, that really changed everything for me in life, I was the person on the left. And what I can maybe share at this point is, as I was learning these mindfulness techniques that I'll share with you in a moment, to engender the awareness that we see on the right-hand side person there, as I became more aware of my thoughts and my emotions, there would be times where I would realize, after a period of 2 hours of being lost in thought and emotions, I'd suddenly become aware and say, whoa, hold on. I've been lost in those negative emotions and thoughts for 2 hours now. And then I'll try and come back to the present moment and be there for maybe 10 or 20 seconds. And then it's gone again for maybe 3 hours until I realize again. So I was very far down the road of the person on the left-hand side. So my question to you is, which of those are you in your general life, your working life, your home life, your personal life, professional life, in relationships, with your family, with your partner, if you have a partner, your relationship to life? Okay, that's my question to you. So, and we're going to explore how to move from the left to the right. Now, something that is really important to say is what I realized as a shock when I started reading into So I'm very academically focused in some ways. I'm also very practically focused in some ways. But from an academic perspective, I started reading about well-being and the lack of well-being in the veterinary industry worldwide. And some frightening statistics here, and they really are frightening. I realized I was not alone. I realized I was just one of many veterinarians and paraveterinary professionals who go through a burnout, breakdown, depression, anxiety type experience in life. It was a shock. Now, what do the numbers say? Now, this is a number that I haven't seen published as such, but it was a personal communication shared from a colleague on the South African Veterinary Association in the previous few weeks. And that is that in a 2024 survey of South African veterinarians, that 38% of South African vets showed signs of clinical depression. So that's mild, moderate, or severe depression. And colleagues, what that means, and when I say colleagues, I mean the literal translation, co-league. We are on the same team here. We are players on the same team, colleagues. 38%, that's 1,500 veterinarians approximately in South Africa who are clinically depressed. What it also means, we were, I don't know how many people we are now, but we were 322 a while ago. That means that there's about 130 odd depressed vets, mild, moderate, or severely depressed, here with us tonight. So welcome to those 130 people. You are most welcome, and I'm so glad that you joined tonight. Because I do believe that the message that I have to share has the potential to change that for you. Okay, so 38% of South African vets show signs of clinical depression, South African veterinarians. More broadly, if you look internationally, we can see that about 50% of veterinarians, whoops, slide. That's what happens when you change your slide at the last moments. Let me get that back up. I just updated to the latest statistics. So let me just get that slide so that it displays accurately. Okay, so the second bar there, 50%. This is a 2023 study by the American Veterinary Medical Association and Merck. That they said that in their study, they found that 50% of vets believe that other vets are satisfied with their careers. In other words, when you ask a vet, do you think that vets are satisfied with their careers? Then only half of vets would say, yes, I think other vets are satisfied. In other words, as a community, I don't think that you are satisfied and you don't think that I'm satisfied, or about 50% of the chance only do we think that. That means that, 50% of vets don't think that other vets are satisfied in their careers. So that's quite a hectic statement. And then when we look at the Vetoquinol UK study in 2021, they found there that 63% of veterinary professionals believe that their mental health had declined since joining the profession. In other words, they felt that being a veterinarian or a veterinary professional actually was part of the challenge for them. That decreased their mental health, or that it was associated with it, should I say. So those are quite frightening or shocking statistics. And our dilemma is that, or before I get to that, what I really wanted to say here is that this is shocking, but I'm not actually willing to accept this as my present or future reality. Like me, as a human being, I'm not willing to accept this, that I'm going to be one of these people. I'm not at present, but I most certainly will not accept these numbers. And my question is, in a really caring way to you, is, are you willing to accept this? Personally. Because we are the masters of our own destiny. And our decisions today and our actions today will determine who we are as our future selves. Our future self will look back and say, wow, we thank our past self for doing something about this, for taking the bull by the horns, so to speak. Okay, so there's a challenge in there, but it is a compassionate challenge. It is not meant to upset or challenge in an uncomfortable way. It is meant to create awareness and to say, as a community, we've got to do better and we've got to help each other. And that is why I'm here speaking to you tonight, because I really feel passionate about this. So our dilemma as animal carers, veterinarians, veterinary nurses, other colleagues, paraveterinary professionals who work with animals, hands-on, people in animal welfare organizations, more broadly than just the veterinary industry. But our dilemma as the veterinary and paraveterinary industry is that we really are quite good at caring for animals. We really are. And many of us devote our lives to that, whether it's in a clinical scenario or working in industry or academia, whatever, or other fields. But we really are we know about caring for animals. But our dilemma is that we're not so great at caring for ourselves as human beings, as veterinarians. We were never really taught that. Now, if you just look at that image on the right, the smiley face, sad face, you don't really know whether that veterinarian standing there, whether they are happy or sad, do you? You can't really tell from their face. It's sort of like they look like they're smiling, but are they really smiling? What happens? Are those eyes squinting? What's happening to those eyes? So this is a scenario that many of us face, is that we are not well, but we're putting on a brave face and we're looking well, and people who work with us aren't really even aware how badly we're doing. When I had my breakdown, which my psychologist called a burnout, it sounded more a softer word. When I had my mental emotional breakdown a few years ago, people said to me, "But Bert, you're always smiling. We thought you're happy, and you're telling us you had a breakdown. What on earth is going on?" Okay, so looks can be deceiving, and not in the way that we're trying to deceive, but rather in this is perhaps the best we know. We're not used to being vulnerable, is the one thing. We're not used to saying, "Wow, guys or girls, I've got a problem. Like, I need some help here. Can you please help me? I'm going to have a meltdown here if I don't get some help here." That's the one thing. But secondly, is we are often not even aware how badly we are doing or unwell we are. And what I realized, that is one of the big learnings for me in my journey, was that how unaware I was, how unmindful or unaware or unwakeful I was in terms of my own state of well-being. So that's part of what I'm going to share with you, and what mindfulness really is all about. It's becoming more aware of our internal states and our internal worlds. So a really important concept that I would like to really emphasize is that we are not our thoughts and that we are not our emotions. It sounds really like quite a simple statement, but it really is quite profound, because our entire life experience is experienced through our mind and our emotions. Our psychological state is our entire life experience. But what one realizes when you really delve into well-being and mindfulness is that we are actually not our thoughts. and we can choose to engage with thoughts or not, and we can change our thinking. And we are not our emotions either. So if you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, then it's helpful to know that that's not actually your essence. Those are things that are on top of your essence. They are sort of secondary layers or layers of the onion, so to speak. So, and if we can learn to experience our thoughts and our emotions in this way, then we are actually free from being caught in them. Okay, so that's one concept. Now, when we think about well-being, and this is really something, sort of a take-home message from this presentation, is that we can think about four main quadrants or spheres of well-being. And this forms the basis of well-being. There's other layers, secondary and tertiary layers of well-being that come on top of this that are also very important, but this is the foundation. And if the foundation is strong, then we are strong. The others are more peripheral in nature. So the first sphere of well-being is mental well-being. Our mind. How busy is our mind? What is our mind saying? How's our mind making us feel? What sort of thoughts do we have? When we go to bed at night, is our mind calm? Can we sleep? Or is our mind very busy? So that's mental well-being. It's the state of mind. Okay, critical component of well-being because we experience our entire life through our minds. So worth investing in. Secondly is then the emotional quadrant or emotional sphere of well-being. So this is, what are we feeling? Mental is, what are we thinking? Emotional is what are we feeling? And the mental and emotional affect each other. We have an upsetting thought, now I'm upset, now I get angry. The angry I get, which is an emotion, now the thought gets fueled again. And now I really get mad. And now I'm really thinking about all of these terrible things that all these people are doing and how unfair it is, or the terrible things I've done and how, now I feel guilty about that. That's an emotion, and then it fuels the thoughts and the emotions. So they are very closely linked. So the psychological quadrants, mental and emotional. Okay, so that is really critical, and I'm going to a large extent focus on that tonight. But also it's really important to talk about physical well-being, our bodies. How do we care for our body? What state is our body in? Are we aware of what state our body is in? Are we conscious of it? For all of these quadrants. And then lastly, as part of the foundations, is what I've called here spiritual well-being. Now, spiritual means connecting to something that is bigger than ourselves. For some people, it will be religion. For some people, it will be being in nature. For some people, it will be staring up at the stars at night and getting perspective on our earthly existence. Why are we here? What would we like to do? Do we believe there's a reason why we are here? What would we like to achieve in life? What would you like to leave behind when we have gone? And so forth. The big questions. So these are the four quadrants of well-being. Okay, so mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And what I would like you to consider is, as we go through the slides, is how do you think you are doing in each of these quadrants? Because each of them is like a tank that holds water. And any one of these four can either be full, from the full range of full to empty. And we are only well when they are all full. Then we are well, in a state of well-being. There are other layers of well-being that you may say, but what about this and that? And there are, and they are secondary to these. We're looking at the foundation here. If these are well, the other ones can become well. If these ones are not well, the other ones are always going to struggle. Okay, so that is well-being in the context of mindfulness. And mindfulness is being aware of these states. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the big shocks to me when I had my burnout, my breakdown, was that this was a shock afterwards, is how unaware I was of how close I was to the edge of that cliff, and I fell off. I actually fell off. The first time, figuratively, the first time I realized that I was really in trouble was when I had hit rock bottom. Is the first time that I realized that, oh my goodness, I was physically shaking. I couldn't actually function. And all that I knew was that I was stressed. I knew I was stressed. I knew I was very stressed. That I did know. But I didn't know that all of my tanks were empty. Okay, so mindfulness is of being aware of our mental state, our emotional state, our physical state, and our spiritual state. Whatever you may understand that to mean. Okay, that's mindfulness. So when you look at this now, in terms of the first quadrant, where we're going to look at the mind, is the common things of all of the things that make us feel stressed in life is a busy mind. So that's important to realize, is that when we have a quiet mind, we won't actually be stressed. And I can attest to this, is that when we have a quiet mind, a peaceful mind, we are not stressed. The busier the mind is, the easier it is to become stressed. Okay, so in terms of the mental quadrant, my question to you, my first question to you, and you can see how busy this person's mind is the first question is how often do you have peace of mind? Or do you have peace of mind? Tonight, today, while you were at work. Tonight, when you are home, or maybe you're not, maybe you're at work now. Or over the weekend, or on holiday. Do you actually have peace of mind? Because peace of mind is priceless, because that is our life experience. Now, we have about 65,000 thoughts a day, and we can get swept away by those. And this happens to many people. It's common to the human condition that our minds are so busy, and I think for vets, paraveterinary professionals, we are educated, we are intelligent, we have always been praised for our mind for good reason. The mind is useful, thoughts are useful. Of course they are. Look at the progress that we've made in many ways as a species. So thinking can be very useful, but with 65,000 thoughts a day, we can get swept away by those thoughts. So the question is, which thoughts do you engage with? Because not every thought is equally important or equally significant, right? If you have 65,000 thoughts, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not really worth engaging with. But if we get swept away and we engage with every thought, then we don't have any peace of mind. Okay, so thinking isn't a bad thing, but we need to learn to step back and to see the thoughts with clarity, and that is what mindfulness is about. That is what mindfulness, in terms of the mental sphere, is about, is being able to see a thought and say, aha, I see that's a thought, and I can either choose to engage with it, or I can choose to let it go if it's not useful. I don't suppress the thoughts. I'll allow them to arise. They can be there, but I see them clearly. I'm not just being swept away in a stream of thoughts Like I'm being swept away down a river, and at night when I go to bed, there wasn't a single moment in the day where I was actually able to stop the thoughts or just say, okay, now that thought is not useful. Okay. Now, when we get to the point, and these mindfulness techniques help us with this process of being able to see an isolated thought, to recognize it. So then the question is, which thoughts do we engage with? And there's this really helpful technique of a power of the equal and opposite truths. So when we are able to see our thoughts, especially self-chatter, internal chatter, internal monologues and dialogues, when we call it thinking, but actually we're talking to ourselves subverbally in our minds. What is that? What are that voice or those voices? What are they saying? I'm going to give you an example of when opposite and equal truths can be very useful. So let's say that I go to work and I think to myself a negative thought. So I wish I didn't have to go to work today. I really don't feel like seeing so-and-so. They're just not... I just wish I didn't have to see that person. That's this and this and this and this and this. An equal and opposite truth is to say, wow, look at me. Well done, Bert. Well done, fill in your name. Here I am. I'm going to work, even though I don't actually feel like engaging with that person, because I am actually going to assist all of those animals today, as an example. I'm going to do good in this world. Even though I may not feel like it, I am like a hero. Here I go. Well done. Congratulations. This is brave. And I'm supporting perhaps a family with this by doing this. Okay, that's an equal and opposite truth. So when we talk ourselves down, or when the thoughts are of an unhelpful nature, it can be very helpful to say, okay, hold on, I see that thought, I recognize it, but I can also turn that thought around and think in the other direction. So that's very helpful. So I'd encourage you to try and do that. If you can see your isolated thoughts. And then my other question to you is, how do you look after your mind? How do you actually look after your mind? We know that to have a healthy body, we need to eat healthy food. But how do we look after our mind? Okay, so what I would like to share with you now is a mindfulness technique. And it is one of the most basic mindfulness techniques and really an anchor in terms of mindfulness, and it is mindful breathing. And what this is about, for those of you who haven't done this before, is it is a way of being quiet and calm and observing our minds. We are observing, we become the observer of our minds. And what it teaches us is it teaches us to see a thought arise, or an emotion arise, or a feeling arise, to identify it, so thought, and to let it go. It sounds terribly simple, doesn't it? But it's actually can be initially especially quite challenging. But what this means is that then as we go, we can become more aware of our thoughts. And as a thought arises, we can start seeing it, and we can then choose during everyday life whether we want to engage with that thought or not. That might be a negative thought. It might be something that is not useful at all. That is telling that a negative thought about myself, for instance. So then it becomes possible, instead of that thought, or maybe it's one of these thought emotional loops that don't go anywhere. For days or weeks or months, you can have the same thoughts. Thought, emotion, thought, emotion. that are an unhappy state. And if you can interrupt that, you can change your thinking and you can change your emotions. There's a lot more to say about it, but that is in principle what it is about. For the purposes of tonight, that is, I hope, a clear enough description. And what we are doing in this technique is we are getting something other than the mind to focus on, because normally during the day our mind is constantly going. It doesn't really stop. So we need to focus our attention on something else. And what we focus on in this exercise is our breathing. So just that you know what's going to come, I'm going to, in a moment, give you the opportunity to join me, and we're going to just have 1 minute. It's going to be a 1 minute exercise, this mindful breathing. Now, if you're the sort of person who doesn't ever get stressed and you don't ever have thoughts that you wish, or thoughts that are negative or unhelpful, or you've got a very busy mind, if that's not you, then you should rather go make a cup of tea. This is only really for people who feel that they can benefit from having a more calm state of mind or emotional state. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the feeling of breathing. We're not going to think about it. We're going to focus on the feeling in our body, the sensations. It's all about the sensations, feeling it. And we're going to focus on that. And then we are just going to breathe in a normal way, nothing strange, nothing fancy. And we are going to focus on that feeling. And when a thought arises or an emotion arises, we are going to just label it in the mind and say, okay, thought. Let it go. Don't engage with it and come back to the breath. How simple is that? Okay, we're going to do that repetitively. Okay, so mindful breathing. So I'm going to invite you to join me for this. It's going to just literally be a minute. It's the foundation of mindfulness, to learn to see our thoughts and emotions. It's only once we can see them that we can start interacting with them, get a bit of distance from them, and choose how we would choose to wisely engage with them, how to respond rather than to react impulsively. Okay, that's the whole difference. That's what brings us to the point of mindfulness eventually. So here we go. So what we're going to do is sit comfortably, or if you're lying down, that's okay. But sit comfortably. You can just sit with your hands on your legs, like this person in the picture. And I'm going to, first of all, we're going to take a deep breath in. So in through the nose. And as you breathe in, you feel your body expanding. And out through the mouth. And you feel your body softening. And as we breathe out, you close your eyes if you're comfortable to do so. And you just come back to a normal way of breathing. And you can feel the weight of your body getting out of the mind into the body. Feel the sensations of your feet on the floor, gravity, the weight of the hands on the legs or on the knees. And if you're just breathing normally, you can become aware of any sounds around you, the sensations in the body, the senses. Don't get involved in the sounds. Just observe them. And then focusing on the breath, focusing on the feeling of the breath. Do you feel it most at the nostrils, or in the chest, or on the abdomen? If you can't feel it, you can put your hand on your stomach. And then we just focus on that feeling of the breath. And when there's a thought that arises, or an emotion, we can just label it, that's a thought, let it go, and come back to the breath. Feeling that sensation of the breath. And then you can come back again to the feeling of the gravity pulling us, our weight, the sounds around us, any smells, temperature of the air. And when you're ready, just open your eyes again. Okay. And that was a mindful breathing, mindfulness technique. So what I just want to emphasize out of this is that it is a method. What we are learning to do is we are learning to observe the mind and observe the emotions and the sensations. And once we get to a point we can observe them, we can see them, we're not lost in thought, we can actually see the individual. It's almost like watching traffic, there's so many cars. It's just like a blur coming past all the thoughts. And this is the point where you can start seeing the individual cars. And you can say, hold on, there goes a Mini Cooper. There goes a Fortuner. Okay, and you're identifying those thoughts. And at that point, then you can start choosing whether you interact with them or not. And you don't get lost in that stream of thought and emotions, but we are able to take a step back and see them more clearly. Okay, so that is a mindful breathing technique, and that was a minute. So I'm sure you have a minute a day. And what science shows us is that the techniques are most effective when you do it for 10 minutes a day. That can be in 1 minute, 10 1-minute breaks if you want, or it can be in a 10-minute shot all at once. But science shows us that with 10 minutes a day, you start getting the most effect. And that effect translates into measurable increases in happiness and contentedness and other measures of quality of life. Okay, now here's another one that's mindful breathing, and there's another one which is closely related, which I thought to share because I think in the veterinary field this is particularly useful. We often face situations that are challenging, that we may have intense thoughts about or intense emotions about. It may have been a difficult interaction with a client. We might have felt that that we are being disrespected. We might just have euthanized an animal or been emotional support for the people involved. And we've got to literally, within 1 minute, turn around and open the door and see the next client, right? And so it goes on during the day. So this mindful pause is designed to be something that you can literally do in 5 seconds or a minute. And this mindful pause, some people call it a tactical pause, is rooted in the same mindfulness principle which we just practiced together, this mindful breathing. But we're just going to take a single breath here. Just a single breath in this exercise. And it can be a way. So the breath is an anchor. It's an anchor to the present moment and an awareness of the present moment. That's what the breath is in all of these exercises. You can have other anchors. But for tonight, we're just talking about the breath as an anchor. Because it's always with us. You don't ever have to wonder where's your anchor. You can just, there's the breathing. And you can come back to it. And that is your cue to start observing the mind. And stop observing the thoughts and to to separate the useful thoughts from the non-useful ones and the useful feelings from the non-useful feelings in that moment. So this mindful pause consists of 3 steps. The first thing is that when you feel overwhelmed or you feel intense emotions or thoughts, the first thing you do is stop. Okay, so the moment you become aware, I'm not actually in a state of peace here. You stop whatever you're doing. You stop whatever you're doing. Second step, breathe. You just take one breath. It can be multiple breaths if you have the time, but you can take one breath. In through the nose, and you're focusing on the feeling, that same feeling that we practiced just now in the mindful breathing. In through the nose, feel the body expand, and as you exhale, feel the body soften. You can let your shoulders sag down while still keeping your neck straight. We're not losing posture. No one even needs to know we're doing this. We're simply taking a breath. But in that moment, we are connecting to that feeling of the breath, and we are recognizing that we are not our mind and we are not our emotion, but that those are layers on top of our being. And then the third step after that moment of breathing is focus. Focus on whatever you're doing. Focus on observing the thoughts and choosing the thoughts that are useful for that moment, and choosing to focus on the feelings that are useful for that moment. That's why it's called a tactical pause or a mindful pause. So stop, breathe, focus. So I'm quickly going to do that with you. And there's more science behind this that we don't have the time to go into tonight, but if you have a longer exhalation than your inhalation, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So you come out of the fight and flight into the rest and digest mode. So it decreases the sympathetic and it increases the parasympathetic tone in the body. Okay, so this time we're not going to close our eyes. We're going to just keep our eyes open. So imagine you're facing a situation that your mind and your emotions are in a state of non-well-being, and you become aware of that. You become aware, you suddenly realize, I'm not feeling good. Then you say, stop. Okay, so stop, breathe in through the nose, and out through the mouth. And connect to that feeling, that sensation of breathing, and then focus. Okay, very simple, right? And there's several other wakefulness or mindfulness techniques, or techniques to access presence, and this is what we cover in the workshops and in the events and so forth. So if you're interested in there's a lot more. And this is the second last point that I want to leave you with tonight, is to realize just this concept that we can get swept away by our thoughts. That's the one option, swept away, like down a river in flood. Or we can learn to step back and see the thoughts with clarity. Once we have learned that, it's a skill to learn, we can then get to the point where we can start choosing which thoughts we choose to engage with and not, and the same with emotions. It's not a way to suppress thoughts or emotions. If the emotion is useful, it's important. It's giving us a really important information. We must always, for emotions, we don't have the time tonight. In the interest of time, I'm going to need to close off. But in terms of emotions, one of the points there is name it to tame it. for emotions, it's really important to become aware of what we are feeling. Okay. The last thought that I will leave you, because it is now 1:45 and we need to return to our lives beyond the life of the webinarist, is this thought that I would like to leave you with. That it is easy to lose our natural sense of wonder and enjoyment. I think, colleagues, for many of us, that's true. We've lost our sense of wonder and enjoyment. When last did you stand in awe at something and say, oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. I'm just lost in the magnificence, the wonder and awe and enjoyment and the joy and the laughter, the lightness of being. It's easy to lose these things, and many of us do along the way, probably most of us. But just like awareness or mindfulness, they are here all the time, and we can rediscover them. So if you want to come on a mindfulness journey, I'm certainly game for that. And I want to thank Hills again for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm hoping it'll be possible to engage more on these topics. I actually have an entire slide deck on the other quadrants of mindfulness beyond the mind, the emotion, the body, and the spiritual aspects. But we didn't have the time tonight to cover that. So thank you to Hills. And colleagues, if you're interested in this, you're welcome to reach out. And that we can have more interactions of this type. Thank you very much.